Hello and good afternoon. This is Gina Anne Costigan coming to you with my podcast, 50 and Fabulous, What You've Learned Through the Trenches. And we are sponsored here today by Main Street Mortgage. And I also wanted to wish everyone here today a happy Halloween. So I'm so excited today to have my guest, my friend, Miss Patti Smith. Welcome, Patti.
Hi, Gina. Great to be here. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I know I didn't really get to dress up. My whole office dressed up. I said I'm dressed up as a newscaster.
That works.
That works for the day. But gosh, we have so much here to talk about, so I want to get going and start with, some of the great topics that we have here. First and foremost, we are talking about your book today, and your book is What Am I to Do Now? Simple strategies to navigate the unknown and ignite what's next in your life. Well, that's a big topic right there. So we'll dive into that one in a little bit. But I wanted to start first with a few things that we had talked about when we met a couple days ago or a week ago and just got to know each other a little bit more, which was exciting. And you told me, this is really interesting, you're one of 6. You're like the Brady Bunch. You
Yes.
came from, your mom and dad had 6 children.
Uh-huh.
And where are you in the pecking order?
I'm in the middle. I'm like the Brady Bunch. I'm Jan.
Oh.
So it was boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
You are definitely like the Brady Bunch. And how many years apart were you guys?
All the girls are 4.5 years apart from each other, and the boys are 4.5 years apart from each other.
That is just very interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't planned, but
And I like too how you mentioned that your mom was the trailblazer. She was definitely the force for you girls.
She definitely was. We used to say that she was born ahead of my sisters and I. Mm-hmm. She was born ahead of her time because she wanted to do more as a woman out in the working world.
Right.
And she was just born in a time when her parents were saying, just, be a secretary and find a good man and get married and settle down. So
well, she got married and settled down, had a lot of children, but she still probably had that in her heart. And if she couldn't do it, she wanted to see her daughters do it.
Yes. She was she was a secretary, but she became the secretary. I grew up in Michigan.
Uh-huh.
There was a big magazine in downtown Detroit called the Holiday Magazine.
Okay.
And she was the head secretary to the president. So
how did she have time for that?
Well, that's before she got married.
Oh,
so that
I was going to say, holy moly.
Yeah, that was moving to the top as quick as best she could.
Okay. And then when she had 6 children, and I'm thinking she stayed home about that time.
Yeah, she did.
Well, that's great. I know your dad is still here with us. You said he's 95, 94?
94. He just turned this in October.
Wow, gosh. He said he stays busy, you said, so that's really good.
Yes.
And you were married for 25 years. Your husband's name is Tom.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a thriving daughter who's 20 years old. Tell me a little bit about her.
Yes.
Her name's Christina, and I happen to like the name because my daughter's name's Christina.
I remember you shared that. Yeah. Another similarity.
Yeah.
Yes, she's 20 years old, and she was one of those that graduated during the pandemic from high school.
It's tough.
And it was, everyone had their version of not a great time, but she navigated. That was a tough time, and it was tough to navigate as a parent because it's not something that any of us ever dealt with.
Right?
Yeah. And but I'm so proud of her because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. She is such a driven girl right now. I mean, she knows what she wants, and she leaves no stone unturned, and she's into music, and she's wants to get into music management. And it's just amazing to see a kid who was, the pandemic really was a bit of a struggle for a while, and I was concerned, and now there's no stopping her.
Well,
so it's amazing.
I don't know where she gets it from. I have no idea. It was really interesting to me too. I was just in Nashville, and to see all these artists. I mean, I watch The Voice at home, or I see them at home, and I do watch a lot of TV about music because I love it so much. And to see so many of them there, just really trying to get their name out there, and a lot of them were pretty good. It was very interesting. So, is that where does she want to go on to a school just about music, or does she know where she wants to go?
Yeah,
yet?
well, she's actually going to a film and music management school right now.
Oh, okay.
And she's been doing a lot of internships already. She's got a lot on her resume, and she's really in that artist management space.
Okay.
Is so far where she's really loving.
Oh, that'll be a lot of fun then.
Oh, she's just seeing herself as a CEO. So we'll see.
Okay, then. Good for her. She can take care of us, right? I'll take care of you. I'll just say I'm coming over.
Okay.
Well, there's so much to get to. So you definitely started in a different industry than, your writing and doing what you're doing now. Patti, you were a professional, and you were in the, the healthcare and luxury market industry. You work for a clothing industry too, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about all that. Tell me about that right now.
Yeah, well, I had two passions when I was really young, and one of them was fashion, and the other was helping people. And I had two nicknames when I was young growing up. One was Fashion Plate, and that was my mother. She, I used to argue with her what kind of pajamas I was going to wear, so it started young. And then the other, my brothers kind of dubbed me, and that was Florence Nightingale, because whenever my friends had problems, they would call me, and then I would be out the door, and they're like, Florence is out there helping again. So it's kind of interesting to see how that ended up integrating into my life. So fashion was my first passion, and so I ended up...
for Express or something, right?
I worked for actually Esprit back in the 80s.
Esprit, I knew it was one of them, yes. I wore that.
Oh, that was like my dream company, my dream job. And I was in Michigan, so to get into the industry, I in my book, I talk about it was an interesting path, but I really lived my dream job when I...
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
and then
fun.
it just morphed into, I did it for a long time, and then... I got into the luxury market eventually because I didn't want to travel so much anymore. I had my daughter and all that.
That changes things for sure.
Yeah. And so I was selling advertising for a high-end home magazine. Still loved it because still kind of in that fashion sense of the word. And then my oldest sister, who was battling cancer off and on, her cancer became terminal, and I ended up having...
changed your whole world, really.
Yeah, I quit working and I took care of her until she passed away, and that's when my world really changed.
Yeah. We really talked about that, and we talked about you taking care of her and became her caretaker until, till the end, and then her children you helped a lot as well.
Yeah.
Growing up. Because they were pretty young when
she
passed away.
They were. My nephew was in middle school and my niece was in high school, and I mean, you don't wish that upon anybody.
No.
And but you know what? I felt such this pull to want to be and continue to be a role model for my daughter, who was 7 at the time when my sister passed. And also to my niece and nephew.
Of course.
And not
they
that
needed that too. They needed it.
Yeah. Not that you were going to replace my sister, but I just felt this, strong desire to want to be a role model. And what was interesting was I was in this reflective time because I suddenly I loved the fashion business. I loved that luxury market, all that. But it's like when she passed and my world was healthcare for a year with her, navigating that space, I felt this pull towards
and you learned
healthcare.
A lot about it, right? You learn a lot about it.
I wanted like some kind of advocacy. I wasn't sure which route to go. I was involved with hospice with my sister, so I was thinking maybe that route. But, I eventually landed with this technology company, and I loved what we were doing for the seniors and for disabled with technology. And it really pushed me outside of my comfort zone, but I felt my why was so strong.
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
that's what got me in healthcare. And then eventually I ended up having to shut that company down, even though I didn't start it. I became president, and just some things happened, and then I found myself asking myself, what's next again? Because I thought that was my next
and
act.
I think too with healthcare and what I've learned just with having I do have epilepsy, And I'm very open about that. And when I was first diagnosed, I was diagnosed with everything but epilepsy. They couldn't figure out what was going on, why I was having seizures. I was having pseudo seizures. I was causing them myself. I'm like, yeah, I really am causing a grand mal seizure all by myself. And finally, you have to become your own advocate. And I've taught both my daughters to be their own advocates, and they are with themselves and with their grandmother. They help her a lot with their health care. Just because if you don't push and push and push and ask for that test that you think you need, or say I need to be at USC or UCLA or Cedars, or we're located in these areas and you're really sick, you know what? Until I got to USC, I was there for 10 days, and after 4.5 months of misdiagnosis and terrible medications, in 10 days I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And in the last 3 years I have not had one seizure.
That's amazing.
I did have breakthroughs after that, but in the last 3 years, now that I'm pretty stable, I would say none in 3 years, which has been the longest since 2014.
Congratulations.
But still, thank you. But it's just being your own advocate.
That's probably the biggest thing that came out of the experience with my sister in navigating the healthcare. And there's been amazing things. Like, I think people don't understand the value of hospice, getting in early. They are amazing. They're angels. Mm-hmm. But the other thing I learned is you've got to either be your own advocate or have, my sister got to a point where I was her advocate.
You were the advocate, of course.
But I think it's learning how, you just trust your gut. Mm-hmm. You know if something isn't right or something doesn't sound right, not to just accept just because the medical community said this or the doctor said this. Trust your gut.
Yeah, this is what you have, and send you home. No, it doesn't work that way when you still don't feel good.
Exactly.
You really got to, like you said, trust your gut.
And that's why I felt, I guess, so pulled to go in that direction. And I looked back when I was writing my book, reflecting, and I thought that was helping people. That was my version. And then eventually I got into personal development, which was just, I realized that was the
Something
space.
You really loved.
Yeah, that was the space, was personal development. So I ended up eventually getting certified, and I'm a life coach and now an author.
Okay, so, we've talked a little bit about what your passions are now and kind of how you got to where you are now, but let's talk about the boundaries and how you got to writing this book. This book is, I see you at eWomen. I think that's where we met. Mm-hmm. And I'd see you get up there and I speak, and I'd see you sit at your table, just you're vibrant, you have all this energy. And I kept saying, I want to know her. But I'm in this room with you, and I'm like, I should know her. I want to know her. And then I'm like, I'm going to ask her to be on my podcast. And then I meet with her by myself with nobody else around, and then we'll do the podcast. So I'm glad we had a chance to do this, because I've wanted to hear more about your book and how you got here, and I want you to tell us a little bit more about the 7 steps too, about the book.
Oh, sure. So what got me to write the book, I when I got certified as a life coach, like kind of quickly, because I know I wanted to speak and get on stages, I thought about writing a book, but I was thinking more like an ebook, because I've never thought of myself as a writer. And then I was introduced to a friend of mine's book coach, and he said, if you're going to be on stages, you need to write a book. And I was a little overwhelmed, but when he kind of broke it down pretty simply, I thought, maybe I could do this. And so that's what got me on the path of writing the book. But I also started a business, so it was start and stop with the book. But it kept pulling at me.
Kept bringing you in.
Yeah, and I even got it to a point where I felt like if I don't finish this book, I feel like I can't move forward in the way I want to, even with my business. And so my daughter really ended up being the push for me without realizing it, because during the pandemic, which, we did have more time.
Right.
I was in the midst of doing that, and, I didn't even tell her I was writing a book. And one day she came and interrupted me. Right. And just out of frustration.
Yeah,
I just said, Christina, I'm trying to, write this book. And she said, you're what? And I thought, oh my gosh, no, I really have to finish this, because I want to be the role model to her. But it was great, because you know what? When I did, it's like everything, my world opened up even more. Right. And it really was a labor of love.
Oh, I love that. And, To finish off this, just because there's so much good energy, and I'm so proud of you and your book, and I really want to be out there and support you for this book. And, I think that whenever I hear you at eWomen, you're an inspiration not only to myself, but to those women in the room. And I think especially the newcomers, too, that come and they're always wondering what it's about. It's important, too, to tell our stories and to be able to tell our stories. If it's not at eWomen, then maybe on another platform. But I think it's so important to speak and to tell our stories so people understand where we come from and how we can help them. But when I finish here today, I definitely want to bring this up because you brought this into me today. And it's a magazine that you were put into. They wrote an article about Empty Nesters Survival Guide, and you are on page 29.
Yes.
That is so exciting. So we have a little bit more here that we talked about here today, and that is so cool and so exciting. So not only are you in this magazine, you also are an author. So you are one to be reckoned with, and I am truly blessed to have you on the podcast, and I wish you all the luck, Patti. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Gina. And I just want to tell everybody out there, especially women in their second act, that I really believe women are just getting started.
Oh, for sure.
And not to give up and to continue. I have a thread throughout my book is Ignite Your What's Next Evolution, because we're always evolving into that next best version, and not to stop just because we're at some certain age.
And to say, one more thing, and this is so very true, and I just told my daughter this over and over again. You can reinvent yourself at any time. I reinvented myself at 41 years old because I wasn't sure what I was going to do again. And you can do it over and over and over again. There is no time limit. You can reinvent yourself at any time.
I reinvented myself at 50 years old, and my sister passed away at 50.
So.
And she didn't get a second act, so that's what really kicked me in the butt to move forward.
So there you go. Well, thank you, Patti. And I hope you have a wonderful Halloween.
You too, and I really appreciate being with you today and being on your podcast. Thank you, Gina.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Good week, too. Bye.